And welcome in, everybody, to the MHRT Podcast. I'm your host, Mundungus Creevy, alongside my co-host, Glenn Hauser, Mr. Boggins, and a 6'10". We are a fan-led Broncos-based podcast, filling you in on all things NFL news, but more importantly, Broncos news. We go live every Thursday at 7, 6, 5, 4. You know where to put them, on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Twitch. Now, we are still on our quest for 1,000. We just broke that 300 mark, which was awesome. If you've ever wondered how to support a growing channel, the absolute best way to do that is to subscribe, hit the thumbs up, click on the bell, comment, and share so that you can know when we go live, anytime we post amazing content on our pages, and so that other Broncos fans out there in Broncos country can know that we are awesome. Now, I'm not even going to sit around and try to talk about stuff. We're just going to bring him right in because it's super exciting. He's sitting backstage. Doesn't really need an introduction, but I made one anyways because I got to do something. So he basically is the Denver Broncos. He is the host of Broncos Country Tonight on KOA and iHeartRadio, alongside with Benjamin Albright, as well as the game day voice on the Broncos Radio Network. Now, he also listed a bunch of awards that I forgot to type out when he was saying it. So I'm going to say the winner of an Emmy, a Grammy, and an MTV Movie Award.
Pulitzer.
Yeah, and a Pulitzer.
People's choice.
From what I heard on his show, he is the bestest of friends with Mario Vitanzi. So ladies and gentlemen, Ryan Edwards on the show today.
Yeah.
Woo! I appreciate that. Yeah, I appreciate that.
How's that
MTV
Movie Award doing?
Yeah.
Three-peat.
Yeah, if we didn't mention Mahai Mario in your intro, he was going to tweet us after the show. And
absolutely.
So we had to get that in there.
Yeah,
absolutely.
He was he was in the VIP tent today, sending me pictures of myself up there on the hill. So
I saw that.
Yeah. He sent me pictures. Like, he's like, "Oh, you're so handsome," and he sent me like a picture, and I was like, I don't even know what to do with that. Like, I was standing next to Nate Kreckman. I'm like, what am I supposed to do with that? Like, I'm like, thank you.
It's kind of creepy, but I appreciate it.
Yeah.
I mean, I felt better afterwards. You know.
I
wasn't upset about it.
Feel loved. That's important, right?
Yeah. No, it was great. It was a lot of fun. Good day of practice, good couple of days. Training camp's back. We're all very excited.
Absolutely.
I was gonna say, like, it has been a very long summer. Like, we've been a podcast for less than a year, so this is the very first time we've done podcasts during the summer. And I'll tell you, there's nothing.
Yeah,
like it's so hard to figure out what to talk about because there's just nothing going on. And now we just finished day 2 of training camp. Is there anything that you're seeing that is surprising, or is it just more of the same?
Well, I mean, I'd say the one surprise that, for at least for me, and this is my 12th training camp for the Broncos, the one surprise for me is the offense didn't look as bad as I sort of expected. And I'm not trying to be like mean or flippant here. I think more of it is just I'm so used to seeing project offenses. I'm so used to the offense looking way behind the defense, and that just hasn't been the case. You know, we walked out there, and even in the midst of a quarterback competition, I had kind of lowered expectations. Like, oh well, you know, it takes a few days to kind of get into rhythm, and you know, who knows what Teddy Bridgewater is going to really look like with these guys. He hasn't really had a lot of practices with them, but I tell you what, man, they've embraced him. They all look like a team that is building off the consistency of having the same scheme after a second year. So I don't know, that like the first 2 days, that's the thing that immediately jumps out to me is they don't really look lost out there, when I guess I was one person that thought they might.
Oh, yeah. So what was that like driving into Dove Valley? Oh, I was going to say, driving into Dove Valley yesterday. That must have been like Christmas morning for you after last season. What was that experience like when you first walked in?
Yeah, the training camp, every single like first day is like, it's like a back to school. It's like Christmas Day. I mean, because it's the season, and especially for me, like, because we do a show all year long. And so as soon as the season ends, I remember being told this in radio early on, because I've been broadcasting again for 12 years in the area. I was told, like, in the off season, you work twice as hard for half the result. So in the off season, you're constantly hustling for content. And honestly, I actually love that challenge. I love that. I love coming up with new content and new ideas for the show. I think it's a lot of fun because in season, it's all kind of handed to you, right? You just get the information. You're going to preview the game. You're going to preview the matchups. All that. I mean, it's very easy in season. Off season is really the big challenge. So when we get to the training camp, it's like, man, I mean, it's an overwhelming amount of content. It's an overwhelming amount of storylines, because not only do we have what we actually get to watch on the field, but we got 5 press conferences and we got interviews we get to do. And so all of a sudden it's like, okay, where do we go from here? And honestly, you know, on the nights that the Rockies are playing, like tonight, we record 2 hours every day on the show. And, you know, like yesterday, I was like, gosh, can we even get everything into 2 hours right now? Like, do we need to go for a third hour? So anyways, yes, it was a really exciting day, super long day, especially standing out in the sun, but otherwise a lot of fun.
Awesome. Do you feel like there's a lot of hype today for Teddy Bridgewater? I mean, initially it started out as like, I think it was Ben said it was kind of a draw, but I'd give it more of a push to Teddy. And then the more tweets that came out, I kept hearing that it was Teddy all day. I mean, you don't put too much into it, obviously, but I mean, the coaches are keeping a clipboard of these training camps, and each day, each things are going to start building up on each other. And when you have Shermer and Fangio that are trying to play for their jobs, essentially this next coming year, essentially, like, do you think it might be leaning more Teddy, or do you think they're going to go with the high ceiling of Drew Lock?
I mean, it's a great question. And I said all offseason I thought it was going to be Teddy, only because he brought the consistency. And if it really is up to the coaching staff, that's what they're going to want. Now, I think if you make a decision organizationally, it really should be Drew. Like Drew makes the most sense if you're going to make a decision from an organizational standpoint, because by next year, you could just make a clean break, go in a completely different direction. With Teddy, you're doing that anyways, right? Yeah. It's a 1-year contract. It's a one-off. So why not see what you have in Drew and then go from there? But if it's left up to the coaching staff, I think they're going to want to go with Teddy. And what I would say today, of course, Ben, I see his points, and I like how he put it in the frame of, listen, through the lens of what you're looking at, what you want out of the quarterback. Do you want a quarterback that's going to check it down? Do you want a quarterback that's just going to keep you on schedule? Well, then Teddy's your guy. But if you're looking through the lens of wanting more upside there, wanting a guy that can, if you're trailing, could actually win the game for you still, because Teddy's not that guy, then it's going to be Drew Lock. So people will, if you go into practices with the lens of, well, I want to see a quarterback that could be the franchise quarterback, then you're going to be looking at it as like, when is Drew going to get there? And what is he doing to accomplish that? If you're going into it looking, well, I don't care if we have a game manager, I just want to see more consistent quarterback play, then Teddy's going to probably win. So Teddy has been easily more consistent over the first 2 days. Today, Drew had a section of practice where he couldn't hit the broadside of a barn. It was unbelievably erratic. He was overthrowing guys, nearly throwing interceptions. You're just going like, man, I want to see you build off of the momentum. He had a good day the previous day. He didn't do that today, but he closed strong in the red zone. He got a good series in the red zone. And the biggest thing you notice is Drew does a good job of buying time with his feet. I mean, both guys are athletic enough to do that, but Drew is really just at a different level altogether with his arm talent as well as his athleticism to find guys even when it is not working. So, like I said, today I would absolutely say it was Teddy Bridgewater, but I understand from Ben's perspective on but I don't need a guy completing 80% of his passes when it's just going to bog down in the red zone. And that's a good point.
I just keep imagining the coaches have their clipboards, and one of them is like a sheet with check marks or boxes, like Drew Lock, Teddy Bridgewater. Yeah. Day one, would you put?
Good, bad.
They don't need to do that. Just go on Twitter, right? I mean,
right. There you go. Yeah. Twitter's got it, and that makes it tough, right? Because we also know that it's not a day in and day out thing. This is we got to look at it from the macro perspective, and even when we go in and say who won or lost or any of that stuff, we know better that it has to go into the preseason games. And I know for a fact that Vic Fangio, that's what he's really valuing more than anything that we're doing during training camp. It's about the preseason games. So that if you really want to take any stock in anything right now, these are trends. But let's get to the preseason games, and then we'll find out.
I'm very excited because I'm going to be at the second preseason game, which I feel like that might be like the cream of the crop of the preseason games, and you're going to really know, well, hopefully know who's going to be the starter. I mean, Fangio won't he won't call it until 5 minutes before the first regular season game, but I'm real excited to see that.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
I'm trying to convince my wife to let me go to the first one. We'll see how that goes.
Well, you have to give some context to it.
She's 8 months pregnant, and I've already got 5 kids. So I told her I was going to take the oldest one, so I'll take the helpful one with me.
There you go.
She can have the other one.
7 seats are cheap, man.
Yeah, that's what it is. So, obviously we had Mario on last time, and he was just regaling us with story upon story upon story. 12 years in, you've got to have some sort of training camp story. There's got to be something in there.
Yeah, well, sure. I mean, we could. I covered Tebow, so I've got great stories.
Okay, yeah, there you go.
I'll tell you what. Yeah, Tebow was so interesting because first of all, it was Josh McDaniels, which also covering McDaniels was a trip because he was just so much ego, and he just mocked us constantly, the media, and he was such a. I don't know. I always just like he was kind of a jerk, to be honest. Like, I don't want to make headlines or anything. I mean, other players have called him that, but I just he brought this East Coast Boston kind of swagger thing, and that just doesn't play as well out here in Denver. People don't really respond well to that Boston East Coast nonsense. So, and again, that's not a slight. By the way, Glenn.
Yeah.
I grew up in Littleton, so I'm good. I'm good.
Okay, there you go.
I'm just trying to find my pen, like Ryan Edwards.
Yeah,
was a jerk.
And so, anyways, but then you get Tebow here, and Tebow was so. There was just this larger than life thing about him, right? Because of what he did in college, but was so amazing to watch him during practice because we all know about that one video where he's kind of throwing it like a ninja star. But what he would do is while the plays were happening, he would shadow box. He would stand behind the line. And I've never seen this before, and I still haven't seen it since. The starters would be in, and he'd be back there practicing and throwing it and not with a real ball, just running behind the line like that and throwing it and running through the play while he wasn't in the play. I've never seen anything like it.
Still didn't help.
No, it didn't matter. Yeah,
if anything, he needed the ball in his hand.
Yeah, really.
Right, but we were kind of just like, what the hell is he doing right now? And then we're like, it's like shadow boxing. And then the thing that obviously also sticks out was how he's got this whole mantra: I'm going to outwork everybody, and I'm going to make I'm going to be the hardest working guy and all that stuff. And so he would do that. They'd run sprints in the dead heat of the sun, because again, Josh McDaniels is who he is. They'd run sprints, and he would be way ahead of everybody, trying to make all the vets look really bad. And I remember Champ Bailey is cool as a cucumber, super nice guy, competitor, intense. But he, along with the rest of the vets, hated that dude because he was out there to make them look bad. He's running as fast as he possibly can. It's a jog. You want to run fast, but you want to do it together. And Tim Tebow is about the brand. And so that's what you learned about Tim Tebow is he was about the brand. Now, dude, I'll say this. That season is still one of my all-time favorite seasons as a football fan, as a Broncos fan, because it was just so electric, and you never knew what was going to happen. You never knew what to expect. It'd be 3 quarters of just the worst possible football, and then all of a sudden there's just magic, and you can't explain it. And I just remember we would open up the phone lines and talk radio and just say, "So Tim Tebow," and it would be full lines, and it would be. You didn't have to come up with a premise. You didn't have to come up with an argument. You just had to say something about Tim Tebow, and people would be like, he can't play. And the next person would be like, but he's magic. There's something amazing about him. He's a leader. The guys follow him. And so, like I said, that was one of the most wild, I can't believe happened. I mean, look, it'll never hold a candle to covering Peyton Manning, because Peyton Manning is the GOAT. And he is without a doubt the coolest athlete I've ever had a chance to kind of be around or interview or just cover. But it's the opposite of that, but just as intriguing, if that makes any sense.
Yeah,
what's your favorite attribute of Peyton? What makes you feel that he is the GOAT? I mean, we do, obviously, especially where I live now. But what was so special about him outside of just the winning in the Super Bowl?
Yeah, I mean, you know what the on-field stuff was. I don't know. I mean, he brought like this level of expectation to the team, to the organization. People just treated him different, and I hadn't, because I've covered since 2009, and you haven't had a court like nobody took Tim Tebow all that seriously. Like you wanted, you want your teammates to succeed, but you don't think about him in the same vein as you think about Peyton Manning. But with Peyton Manning, like guys legitimately like whatever he said, and then he would do his press conferences where he would publicly call out guys, and he'd make sure that like they knew, and he'd get them that tape that they got called out publicly to the media. He'd do stuff in the locker room, like there was just a different energy with being around the building and being around him and just how. Like I said, the expectations, and we obviously haven't seen it since, and you can't expect even from Drew Lock to be Peyton Manning. You can't say, okay, well, we need to find that. Well, of course you want to find one of the greatest of all time, but in that vein, and it would be kind of like that with Aaron Rodgers again. I mean, it just all of a sudden it would change the way everybody treats this organization, and everybody inside the organization treats themselves.
He said the name.
That's Mile High Prophet. SNL explained it perfectly. Jesus showed up in the fourth quarter.
Sure did. The Lord was there that day.
I was gonna say we're kind of in the same spot now. Like you just go on Twitter and Drew Lock, and then just walk away, and then let everybody just attack.
He's a lightning rod. Yeah,
you're either a hater or a lover. You can't be just critical.
No neutral ground on that point.
No, so, it's kind of become a weird thing with Drew Lock, like on social media, because I mean, this is just sort of my opinion on it. Like I think with Drew Lock, there's a certain amount of people that are holding on to the mentality of letting a quarterback develop, which isn't really a thing that happens as much as it used to. Yeah. Whether it's a first rounder or a seventh rounder. I mean, again, being a second round quarterback, the investment isn't all that there. But if he was a first round quarterback, I think the entire attitude would probably change. People say, yeah, you got to give him that third year. We got to see if he's the guy. But again, like you see the Arizona Cardinals move off of their first round quarterback after 1 year. You see the Rams trading Jared Goff. You see Tua Tagovailoa might be done after this year. I mean, that like stuff like that happens. And so it's just one of those things. Like I feel like there's a certain amount of the fan base that are like, okay, I see these flashes. I see this potential. Maybe he might do something more with that. And then the other side is saying, but you can't become a starting quarterback just on flashes. It's got to be more. And so both sides actually have a lot of points to them, but because everybody gets so dug in, which is again, like a bigger picture thing from what we are as a society right now. People get so dug in on their sides, and one extreme creates the other extreme just by nature of what we are. And I said this on the air the other day that if we actually have way more in common than we're willing to admit. But what happens is somebody says something extreme and somebody's like, well, I can't agree with that. And I'm going to say the exact opposite. And then all of a sudden we just get entrenched. And so I think it's gotten out of hand. I think in the end we'll all figure it out, but it's tough. It's tough climate for sure.
Yeah. Ryan, one question I had for you, and it's something that I noticed since you said you were at the training facility yesterday. I was kind of basically comparing how the players were reacting to, going on training camp field last year when there were no fans allowed. I know obviously they did it because of precaution and COVID and everything, but I'm starting to see now that with the fans back that the players are, not only are they glad to be back, but they're interacting with the fans, and there's just a different energy on the field about this team. Like these guys are actually happy to be here because the fans are there. So I was kind of wanting to get your reaction of how it was when you were able to see the players up close.
Yeah, no, they're pumped. I'm gonna adjust here because it's getting hot. I was trying to hang in there.
It's just hot takes.
Yeah, I know.
I don't have a soundboard.
They're fired up. No, they're fired up, man. We talked to Albert Okwuegbunam today about it. We talked to Justin Simmons yesterday, and today we saw Cortland Sutton running into the end zone and firing him up. Von Miller was singing "Happy Birthday" to a kid out there. it's like a lot of things. I feel like you don't know what you have until it's gone, right?
Yeah.
With COVID, I think we all experienced that in some form or fashion. You don't know what you have until you don't get to do it anymore. And I think the players recognize the energy. And I forget who said it, but it was kind of brought up of, you can't really screw up out there and then nobody notices, right? I mean, like the players had last year with training camp, it was like you have a good play or a bad play, and the only people that are cheering are the people on the field. Like it was eerie at times. We were there every single day, Ben and I, and it was eerie at times just how quiet it was when something happened. And I mean, you probably noticed it on TV. They tried their best to kind of mask a little bit of that.
Yeah.
But in the end, it was still weird. Like you just don't. It doesn't sound right. So that was the kind of observation. I think a lot of them, and now they're all excited to have fans. Now, like I said, Cortland Sutton's running down to the end zone and raising his hands up. Jerry Jeudy yesterday when he caught a touchdown, that deep touchdown from Drew Lock, he was raising his hands up and pumping up the crowd. Like I said, Von Miller's done it every single day, and I know he was going to do it again tomorrow. Yes, the fans absolutely bring a lot. And even I will say, as a media member, I missed it a little bit too, and it definitely added a different level and feels more like football.
Yeah. Now we could definitely continue to talk about quarterback because that takes forever, but I'd rather not. So one of the other things that I found interesting, and we've had this conversation before, I was pretty sure that Bobby Massey was going to be the starter at right tackle, but it looks like Calvin Anderson has been the day one starter from day one and day two.
Well, I mean, I think they want to rotate. I think they're deferring to the guys that have been here first. So Calvin Anderson, they like Bobby Massey is seniority as a vet, but Calvin Anderson has been with this team now for a couple of years. Right. He was brought in specifically when Mike Munchak took over, like they acquired him from the Jets. So I sort of feel as though they want to give him first crack at it. I wouldn't be shocked if by this weekend or next week, Bobby Massey's getting some reps out there with the ones just to see what it looks like. But I think they want to give him a little time. And honestly, it's not a bad thing, too, because, Von Miller's out there. You get a chance to see how Calvin Anderson reacts to one of the best pass rushers in the league. And listen, if he does well, then okay, that's not a bad problem to have. He could be a really good swing. And then if he does poorly, then you've got options there too. I think Cam Fleming on the left side, the second team offensive line, it hasn't been great. So I think that you really want to see, okay, well, if Calvin Anderson is going to be the guy, then Cam Fleming's probably not on this roster. If Calvin Anderson isn't the guy, then let's see Bobby Massey, because Cam Fleming is definitely not the answer at left tackle. And so then you'd probably have Calvin as your swing.
Yeah.
So when's Bobby Massey's Amsterdam video coming out? Do you know?
It's a fantastic question.
That's a big dude running through Amsterdam.
Yeah.
So you mentioned Albert O, and I was listening to your Broncos Country Tonight prior to that you filmed today or recorded today, and it seems like he's going to be a huge part of this team, regardless of who the quarterback is going to be. What is your take on his role, and who do you see as the third tight end?
Well, yeah, he's going to have a big role, and they really need him. I mean, regardless of who ends up being the starting quarterback. I mean, again, we thought it was interesting. We kind of noted on the show that Albert Okwuegbunam kind of tied to our conversation about Jerry Jeudy, who's only had kind of weaker round for quarterbacks. Albert Okwuegbunam has really only known Drew Lock. Like, I mean, he had the 1 year without him, but otherwise he's really only known quarterbacks that throw really, really hard. But yet the catch today he made on the crosser was with Teddy Bridgewater. Teddy put it right out in front of him, and he's able to catch it and run with it. And he went to the ground, no problem whatsoever. And then he caught a pass in the flat a little later on. And like I said, he looks good. It's the speed. It's just having more playmakers. I said on the show today that if Teddy Bridgewater ends up being the starter, it wouldn't shock me if there are multiple games this year where we have like 9 different guys catch the ball. Yeah. They're going to spread the ball all around. And so I know that it's like frustrating for fantasy football guys. But like I said, if it's Drew Lock, it's going to be Cortland Sutton. It's going to be Noah Fant. Jerry Jeudy will be mixed in there. It'll be kind of those 3 guys that'll be the top guys. Tim Patrick, of course, will be mixed in there too. He'll get some games, but he won't be as reliable as specific like numbers. But if it's Teddy Bridgewater, I think that everybody's going to touch the ball. I think he's going to get everybody involved, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. Again, it comes down to I don't know how good they're going to be in the red zone though, and they got to be able to run the ball, obviously. But Teddy Bridgewater is just so inconsistent there, and what we've known about him has been exactly true so far in these first couple of days of camp. But I think Albert O's in for a good season if he can stay healthy. Oh, and your third tight end, Andrew Beck. Andrew Beck's going to be the third tight end / halfback, and then I think Eric Saubert is going to probably be your fourth.
Mm-hmm.
Like that. That's the dude so far that looks legit and looks like he could be there. Austin Fort isn't out of it yet. I say he still has a shot. Sean Bayer is good. Is had a couple of moments, but so far Saubert's been the guy that has been catching everything. And it was kind of like Austin Fort last year where he just caught everything. So that'd be my guess.
Yeah, I would probably leave that spot open, seeing as they're probably going to fill it in after preseason because, after preseason, every team's got to cut down to whatever the league minimum is this year. So I have a feeling that the Broncos are probably going to scavenge through whatever remains and
remains.
The remains is your career.
Yeah.
Kind of going back to the right tackle question, about right tackle. Looking a little bit forward into the future, what do you think the biggest priority for position is going to be going into the 2021 offseason? Do you think it's going to be right tackle? Do you think it's going to be quarterback, or do you think it's going to be edge?
Well, I mean, it's a really good question. I mean, quarterback trumps everything, right? So, I mean, right now you have to say quarterback until we know otherwise. But I think the conversation between right tackle and edge is going to be a fun one in the offseason if we're going just by like positions that are not quarterback. Right tackle is something that, Bobby Massey gives you 1 year. Okay, then you're going to have to draft one. It's not like they didn't target an offensive tackle, by the way, in the draft. They just didn't get the guy they wanted. So they had a specific guy that they wanted in the third round, and he got drafted right before. He was the kid out of Michigan. I'm forgetting his name, but they had a specific offensive tackle they were going after on the third round. He got picked, so then that's why they traded back twice.
Oh, Jalen Mayfield?
Yeah, I think it was Mayfield. Yeah, so they were going after him, and he went, and then they were like, okay, well, we'll just move back. But they were going to get an offensive tackle, and it probably would have changed a lot of the narratives out there that the Broncos don't know what they're doing. So, anyways, I'd say that it really kind of depends this year, right? Because Bradley Chubb's going to be on a fifth-year option. How does he play? How does he come back from hell with his health? Von Miller, are you going to try to give him an extension? So if both those guys play really well and you get close to 30 sacks this year, then gosh, why would you not want to run it back? And then you probably take a day 2, day 3 edge rusher and develop. The Broncos have done such a good job, by the way, of finding undrafted pass rushers. This kid, Andre Metz, is so good. You're going to like him a lot. I think he makes the roster. Super talented, super athletic. He's a beast out there. And they get Malik Reed's another guy that they found recently, Shaquille Barrett before that. They just have done such a good job of finding these diamonds in the rough as far as pass rushers. So they might organizationally feel that they've got something figured out there.
Maybe Browning as well, right? Because apparently they're going to be playing him more on the outside because he's kind of a little behind the cone at this point. But
I was surprised by that a little bit. But Ben reported that because they were so adamant that they were going to give him only inside linebacker work this year, and then they decided because he's coming into camp late that they're just not going to put too much on his plate, and they're just going to give him outside work. So you're right. I mean, if he gets on the field as an outside linebacker, and he's certainly talented enough, maybe that's a direction they go to. Is they just say, you know what, you're good at it. We're just going to leave you there.
Yeah.
In talking about Tim Patrick on your show today, Ben mentioned that he thinks that there's a possibility that he could actually be traded before the season starts. What was your take on that?
He's right. They have 14 wide receivers in camp, and they have some young guys that they want to give a chance to. Tyree Cleveland being at the top of that list. Seth Williams this year. They'd like to get on the field at some point. And as it is, Tim Patrick is exactly who you want as your wide receiver too. Like for a lot of teams, he's like Eric Decker, right? Like Eric Decker wasn't really great as a 1, but boy, as a 2, man, he was unbelievable. Like especially in the red zone. Yeah, perfect example, right?
Yeah.
So that's exactly what you're kind of looking for, and that's a valuable position. Mohamed Sue, didn't he get a second rounder when he was traded?
Second round.
So
Patriots.
I mean, if they could get a second rounder for Tim Patrick, I mean, my goodness. I mean, as
go.
much as I love him and he's an
absolutely.
outstanding player, he's great in the locker room. You go, okay, well, Cortland Sutton, this is the year you got to show us that you're a franchise wide receiver. And then Jerry Jeudy, KJ Hamler, there's more reps for you. You get some exposure to Tyree Cleveland and Seth Williams and maybe a Trinity Benson, or if Kendall Hinton somehow makes the roster, that type of thing. So they have a lot of options at wide receiver. And so like I said, it kind of depends on what the value of that deal is. I think Royce Freeman's obviously a candidate that to be traded here during preseason training camp. But yeah, I mean, heck, if you can get a day 2 pick for Tim Patrick right now, I'd probably do it.
You have to think the Saints called, right? I mean, wouldn't you figure that?
Yeah, was Michael Thomas? Well, they signed
Hogan.
Hogan, right?
Oh,
yeah.
So, your question for you, Ryan. Recently, the Broncos picked up another cornerback who used to play for I can't remember his name, but he used to play for Kansas City and Seattle. Do you feel that the Broncos are stacking the secondary so they can avoid being in a situation where they were last year should the injury bug strike again?
Are you talking about like Tedrick Thompson?
Yeah.
From his former CU buff? Yeah. They picked him up right before camp. I mean, sure, right? I mean, like that they were signing Parnell Motley off the street last year and starting him. That's like not a Mad Lib or a joke or.
We laugh. That's like a stab right
That's
there.
a stab,
Like, ha 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 ha, stab.
Yeah, but you know what? I mean, and that obviously gets glossed over most of the time when people are talking about the performance of the defense down the stretch of like, oh, they gave up almost 28 points per game and all that. It's like, I mean, dude, it was Michael Ojemudia and Parnell Motley on the outside. Like, and I I'm an Ojemudia guy, but like, that's not a good position for him. And even in that Falcons game, same deal. You had, what was it, Devontae Harris and
Julio Jones.
Yeah, you had Devontae Harris and you've got Michael Ojemudia and you got Isang Bassi as your starting 3. It's like, man, like, and you lost both AJ Bouye, if I remember correctly. AJ Bouye and Bryce Callahan the week before.
Yeah.
Both of them weren't available for that game. So my goodness. Yeah, it's a position where I mean, we always say it's cliche, but you can't have too much depth. You can't have too much depth at corner.
Absolutely.
And especially in the NFL right now. As many people that were frustrated by the Pat Surtain pick, you've got Bryce Callahan and Kyle Fuller both on 1-year deals. You've got Kareem Jackson on a 1-year deal. You were going to be needing to add to that position as soon as next year. This team could make a run in the playoffs. Maybe they don't. At the same time, you don't want to all of a sudden have to be like, okay, next year we have to draft a cornerback. You don't want to put yourself in that position. So as I look at it with George Paton, and I wanted Justin Fields, just like a lot of people. But as I look at it with George Paton, this is his guy. Like Von Miller was John Elway's guy, right? It was his signature signing, signature draft pick. He wanted to say, the guy that I brought in here is going to be a face of our franchise in the secondary for the next decade. And that's how strongly I feel about him. I feel like he's the best defensive player in this draft. And I feel like he's going to be that kind of special. He's going to be Champ Bailey special for this franchise. And in the end, you can't blame a first-year GM, for saying, I want that on my team.
Absolutely.
So we've got some comments. We've got some questions in the chat we're going to get to. We've had him on the show before, but he's never been in the chat. Mr. Seegers.
What's up, Zach?
Do you think the second round is around the range of where he's valued in terms of picks in exchange? I'm assuming that's Tim Patrick.
Yeah. That's a good question. Like I said, what would a lot of teams pay for a wide receiver too? And then also, what's the market? How many teams are dealing with injuries, and when can you make that deal happen? I sort of feel as though, because they put a second round tender on him, that most teams around the league feel that that's kind of what he's worth. So it would not shock me whatsoever if they got a second rounder. I think if they can get even a third rounder, we're having a good conversation. I think and then the next conversation is, okay, well, if it's a fifth rounder, is that worth it to you? And it may not be. Like for the Broncos, they might be like, nah, I'd rather have one of the best wide receiver groups in the league and have all this depth, especially with Cortland coming back from an injury. He looks good out there. Cortland looks great, but again, you never know. And then again, what if happens if Jerry Jeudy or KJ Hamler go down and then all of a sudden you're starting Tyree Cleveland because you traded Tim Patrick? Like I said, for me, if it's a day 2 pick, I'm probably pulling the trigger. But it's nothing personal to Tim Patrick, who's just been a beast for this team.
We got another one from Johnny Baki, who is a host of our Sunday show, Nothing Rubs the Orange Blue, and he's on Broncos Talk. He's just a busy guy.
Yes, he is.
Ryan, outside the QB competition, what do you predict the biggest story to come out of camp will be?
Ooh, good question, Ryan. Or Johnny. He said Ryan. Johnny.
You're right.
Like I said, I've been in the sun all day. So yeah,
we can switch them. That's fine.
Yeah,
give it a little
he
latitude.
doesn't care.
All right, Johnny. Biggest storyline outside of quarterback. Well, if we're going position battle, it could be the center. That's obviously up for grabs a little bit. I think Lloyd Cushenberry holds on to that job, so that probably wouldn't be the biggest storyline. That's a good question. Sternad, he's looked good. Yeah, he's looked good. I want to see
Stearns looked pretty good today too.
Stearns had the interception today. That'd be good. I mean, I want to see the young safeties, the young DBs. I want to see if Pat Surtain works into a little bigger role, and because he hasn't run with the ones yet, he's only been with the twos, and that's not a bad thing. They want to make him earn it. They want to make him get out there and fight for that role. I'd say just an overall, like, as I open this thing with talking about the offense, I think the overall just optimism where we're at with the offense. I think if we come out of training camp, we come out of the preseason saying this offense has an identity, they have a specific direction, and they're going to be able to hit the ground running. They're not going to need the first 4 games of the season to get ready. That's how, it's like with Vic Fangio especially, but we've just seen that too many times where the offense is so slow out of the gates. What if in the first 3 preseason games or by the end of the preseason we're like, dude, this offense is moving the ball. They look confident out there. They look like they know what they want to do and they're actually executing it. That for me is kind of everything right now, regardless of who the quarterback is. So yeah, we're all watching the quarterback, but for me, I want to see an offense that kind of believes that they can be good, because they haven't looked like that, whether it's practice or otherwise, for a long time.
Yeah, we got EJ coming in with a question we've kind of talked about before. Am I the only person who thinks Fangio is a lame duck coach? Now, we've all talked about what we think it would take in order for Fangio to keep his job. A lot of us were saying top 3 defense, top 5 defense, possibly a playoff berth, probably a playoff berth. But what happens if it's like top 5 defense, but bottom 25 offense? Like, is that a Fangio firing, or is that redo the offensive coaching?
Well, it's an interesting question. I don't look at him as a lame duck coach, more so as, this GM clearly likes him. He's given him every opportunity to win this job, and his scheme is the scheme that a lot of teams want. You see what they're out there in LA with the Chargers. The Fangio scheme has become the defensive scheme that people want. So I wouldn't be so quick. But what I will say is that it wouldn't shock me that if Pat Shurmur can't get Drew Lock ready to go, and if it's just kind of another average season on the offensive side of the ball, or even if it's just slightly above average, let's say they're going to go get Aaron Rodgers. Let's say they're going to take a run at Russell Wilson or Matt Ryan or Deshaun Watson next offseason. Are you telling me you're not going to let that guy pick his offensive coordinator? Of course you are.
Yeah.
So that's where I see this more going. Now, that guy might want to pick his own head coach too. It's possible. And if that's the case, then you're going to go that direction. You're going to say, okay, Vic, we love you, but we're going to get Aaron Rodgers and we're going to take this thing to a different level. And that's just what we want to do. That's an organizational decision. But that's, again, coming back to why aren't you playing Drew Lock? If it's an organizational decision, you should probably play the quarterback that could be a franchise quarterback versus a guy that's here on a 1-year rental. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of my problem with that. It's also my problem with, as much as I like the Pat Surtain pick, I would have, if you didn't love Justin Fields or Mac Jones, I would have traded back. I would have given myself as many first rounders and arsenal, build the war chest for next year, so I can move around and get a quarterback if I want them. So I'd say for me, no, I don't view Vic Fangio that way, and I don't think they think about him in the locker room that way. But he's got to win games. I think Pat Shurmur might be more on the hot seat than Vic Fangio is the way I'd look at it.
Yeah, I was pretty excited for Mac Jones, but only with Shurmur. Like I wasn't a big fan of Mac Jones with anybody else.
Right.
Danny Trujillo. We're going to have to retrain the fans, and I think we should start with the, and he spelled Mile High Five wrong. Looks like wave, but Mile High Five.
Yeah.
I'm not a
So
wave
Ryan,
guy.
Ryan, how would you describe the change in culture with George Payton in the house? I mean, one of the most noticeable things for me is the fact that he actually seems interested in keeping players along, like, you know, the Simmons and he mentioned Chubb and you know, Cortland specifically, that he wanted to bring them. But what's it like in that building since you spend so much time in those walls?
I mean, I think the guys were pretty energized by him. And I think the big change that came right away when he did bring back Justin Simmons and he did bring back Shelby Harris, like it's not lost on anybody, any Broncos fans, how the Broncos have drafted players, watched them develop, watched them become pretty good, integral, and then just let them leave, or try to lowball them and insult them. And that stuff gets around. I mean, it does. And like John Elway likes to win negotiations. And hey, when he gets a guy on a deal and everybody's like, holy cow, I can't believe he got that deal. Like Chris Harris and Derek Wolfe, who was just like, holy cow, how did he get those deals? They're so below market. You know, great. You know, you did it. But then when you do the same thing to your starting center, Matt Paradis, or you do the same thing to, you know, well, they didn't even offer Connor McGovern, but like, you know, Malik Jackson, you know, when Malik Jackson coming off the Super Bowl, like you could have kept him, and you know, you lowballed him. You lowballed Brock Osweiler. You had a hard line in the sand. Now, right now, Brock Osweiler is a bit of a punchline, but at that time, you know,
he was not.
That guy helped you win a championship
in the system.
And
like
that's right, in this system, and he was supposed to be the future, and that was the whole point of like developing him, and you wanted him to become the next great quarterback here in Denver, and then you lowballed him. You drew a line in the sand, and you thought that was going to be good enough. And so, what was your answer? Well, you traded up for Paxton Lynch, right? So it was just a massive misstep. And you can't be mad. Nice, I like that. You can't be mad at Trevor Siemian. I mean, dude, he overachieved for a seventh round quarterback.
Absolutely.
My God, like people sometimes like, oh, Trevor Siemian. It's like, okay, if you want to look at it as like some indication of an organizational failure, sure, but it's nothing to do with Trevor Siemian. Trevor Siemian was like an overachiever by a mile. He was going to sell insurance. I mean, come on.
Yeah,
but
absolutely.
But like Paxton Lynch, I mean, that's, you know, that was like throwing bad money after a bad situation, right? Or good money after bad. I always screw up the analogy, but the point is, I mean, like you lowballed all these guys, or you didn't offer contracts, and it got around. And so, yes, George Payton came in and said, I'm going to immediately change the culture. I'm going to not only take care of these guys, I'm going to bring them all back, and I'm going to pay them what they deserve to be paid. And all of a sudden, guys in the locker room are like, dude, if I play well here, you mean I get to stay? You mean if we build something here and we actually build momentum as a team, I can stay? It changes everything. And it changes everything for free agents too, because they know they could be more than just a one contract free agent, like Shelby.
And how much does that say if Aaron Rodgers decides to come over and and you have all these free agents that are like, well, I like doing deals with George Payton. I love Aaron Rodgers. Let's make a deal. You know what I mean? Exactly.
No, that's exactly right. And so, like I said, that style of negotiating, and look, he still drew hard lines. Like with Kareem Jackson, it was an $8 million deal. He's like, you know, we just can't pay you $8 million, but we'll pay you $5 million.
Yep.
And you want to go check out and see what you're worth outside? That is totally fine. But we'd love to have you back here on a 1-year deal for $5 million. Kareem Jackson checked around. In fact, he was offered less. So he said, okay, I'll come back for 1 year and $5 million, and we'll see what the market looks after this. And like I said, it's not like he just gave all the money away. He signed good contracts. He paid people what they're worth. And honestly, that goes a long way.
Yeah, it was hilarious seeing all those
from a good franchise.
It was really funny seeing all those $5 million offers for safeties during the offseason when Kareem was out there trying it. I was like, well, he'll be back.
Exactly. Yep.
We got another one from Shadow Jacker, the host of, what did we say it was? MHRT. MHRT In the Dark. That's
After Dark. The In the Dark is a little.
I'm
creepy.
going with In the Dark. Any noticeable outliers on the defensive line?
Outliers. I thought it was interesting today, and I noticed it yesterday too. Jonathan Harris is getting a lot of run with the ones. I didn't expect that. Yeah, I did not expect that. I mean, Shelby's still working his way back. He was playing a lot today, so he looks like he's good. Mike Purcell's back, so that's good. Draymond Jones is clearly like a beast. Is incredible. Outliers on the D line outside of that, Marquise Spencer had a really nice pressure today. That was cool to see. Again, we're talking second and third team.
McTelvin Gene.
Dude, yeah, he had a bad pass today. He's a monster out there.
Has he got thicker?
Yeah, he looks huge out there. I mean, again, I can't say that he's bigger than he was. Because we're not allowed. I'm not down there on the field with him, like we have been in years past. But yeah, when he got that bad pass, he got the entire defense just screaming. And he just, like I said, he's just got this, which you already knew coming out of Arkansas. He's got this incredible first step, and he's so fast for being a huge guy. But you just like he's against the run. That's where he's going to have to really like improve. But man, as a pass rusher, he's smooth, he's fast, he's aggressive. I really like his prospects long term. I don't know what my expectations are for this year, but I know the rest of the defensive players really like him. And then, on the offensive line, they complain about him, which is a good thing.
I was going to say one of the big cheering points I thought from training camp today was that Trinity Benson touchdown catch.
Yeah,
that was a huge boom on that one.
Yeah, he had a couple yesterday. The first one he laid out on a post route for the touchdown, and it was a great catch on his. The other one I thought actually it was going to be a sack, but they let it play out, and he ended up getting a touchdown. But I mean, Trinity Benson is a guy he's been a practice squad guy. He's got a lot of speed. He's just going to have to show that he can be multidimensional and obviously be good a special teamer, because if he makes the roster, there's like 2 wide receiver spots kind of up for grabs right now. I mean, really, when you kind of get down to the nuts and bolts of it, unless they decide to move on from Deontay Spencer, right, which is always a possibility. But I mean, you think you got your top 4 guys, unless you trade Tim Patrick. You've got you've got Tyree Cleveland, Seth Williams. You've got, as I mentioned, Deontay Spencer. It's a tough room to get into. And then again, you got all these other guys like Kendall Hinton as well.
Has Seth Williams been out there?
Yeah, he's been out there. Warren Jackson, I've seen him a little bit, like running with the threes. It's tough for some of those guys to get a lot of extra run, because they do want to get with the guys that are for surefire, 1s and 2s, especially when you got these quarterbacks rotating. But yeah, I've seen him. And
it seems like Tyree Cleveland has been getting some reps too.
Tyree Cleveland's super talented. The most of his stuff came kind of a little bit off field, when he was in college, and but I mean, the talent is definitely there. I wouldn't be surprised if he gets some opportunities potentially as a returner at some point. But and Ben seems to really feel like he's kind of the inevitable replacement for Tim Patrick. Like he really believes that this is the guy that you sort of start on the outside. Not quite the same game, but closer to that. And he's just a really physical, big-bodied receiver that has a ton of speed as well. So he had a couple of catches today. He just shows up, and he makes these catches that are just not easy, right? I mean, we've seen guys come through here that just you give him a tough catch to make, and he makes it. So it's impressive.
It must have been really nice, that huge jump in quarterback play from Kyle Trask to Drew Lock.
Speaking of guys with weaker arms, right.
So Ryan, earlier, I was gonna say, did any of you guys watch the training camp live today?
Yeah.
I mean, I was standing in front of the tent. With Rod and Steve, but I didn't have a chance to watch it.
Because I was gonna say there was like he wasn't there. I think. I don't know what it was, but Rod, he said that Atwater called him at like 6 a.m. and was like, "Hey, you want to jump on?" But they had like a 5-minute argument about if it was pass interference or not on a catch that Judy made. Atwater's like, that was not pass interference, and Smith is like, it so was, and they were going back and forth for like 5 minutes.
That's hysterical. Yeah.
So my next question actually for you was going to be about Steve. You spent a lot of time with Atwater. He's become a huge presence for the team since he's been back in Denver. What's it been like being part of his journey to the Hall of Fame, and being close with him as he gets that news, and now he's going to be inducted in the next coming days.
Yeah, thanks for asking that, Steve, and that process. It's been everything, because I grew up watching him, right? And my dad and I remember vividly watching Broncos games. One of his favorite players, Steve Atwater, and I got to do a radio show with him for a couple of years. And I remember when we first started doing the show, and at the time the focus was on getting Mr. Bolin in. And we told him at the same time, we're going to get you in. Like this is like Andrew Mason and I were like, we're like, just so you know, while we're having everybody on to talk about Mr. Bolin, we're going to be doing our thing, getting you in. And he's like, nah, man, it's fine. I'm happy with my career. If I get in, I get in. But it's cool. I'm happy. And I'm like, that's fine. But we're going to get you in. Like, this is what we're doing. And so it just sort of started out. We kind of just did kind of grassroots, just kind of, having on all these Hall of Fame voters and talking to them, and, just kind of reminding people, and then having to meet Steve. I think sometimes, like, the longer guys are out of the game, you kind of forget about, like, who they are and what they did and how they played. Even in the 90s, you think about, like, there are generations of kids now that never got to see John Elway or Steve Atwater play. It's wild to think about. Like, my kids don't know what that looks like, except for going to YouTube or something. But Steve, I think once he got a chance to be around some of these Hall of Famers, and they got to, like, know him, and they got a chance to kind of go, oh yeah, Steve, Steve really did kind of define that position there. Like, when you think about the 90s football and you think about the best defensive players, his name comes up so many times. And again, just, he's a prince off the field too. Just a beautiful man, and a wonderful father and husband. Everything Joel said the other day is just, I can't say enough nice things about him. And I get it kind of, because I got really emotional. Like, grown man tears when I found out he was going in, because I was sitting there with my kids, and I was waiting, and Alexis Perry was there with the film crew. And when she texted me, like, I'm like jumping up and down and screaming. And I haven't I covered Champ Bailey, he's a great player. I've covered Brian Dawkins, and I've all these players, but nobody's had that impact like Steve. And Steve just kind of, I think he represents so much of what Broncos fans love about this team. Like, he's everything that encompasses the good parts about being a Broncos fan. And I love that he's in this role that he's in now. So I appreciate you asking me about that, because he's one of, I consider him one of my best friends now. And we obviously love that we get to do a show with him every Tuesday. And, very quickly, quick story on Steve. So I started doing the show with him back in like 2017, and he's like Steve out. He's like nicest guy, right? He's like super nice, and it's like I gotta find a way to get some edge in Steve. Like, 'cause Steve is too nice. He's just too nice. Like, I can't get him to come out of his shell. And I was racking my brain, and then we started doing an NFL pick'em segment where we're picking games, and he started talking some trash, and I was like. Oh, you're a trash talker. I was like, we just got to find a way to compete at something on the show, and I'll bring Steve Atwater, the player on the field, onto the show a little bit more. And so that was all. That's right. It's all it took. Like, and these guys, you're around, pro athletes, especially football players. They are different people off the field than they are on the field. They have to flip a switch. But Steve, like, he clearly, like, you saw it, you'd watch him play, and he was just a different player than the guy I just described. But I didn't know how to unlock that until we started doing some competition, and then all of a sudden he just became like a different dude, and he's kind of been that way ever since. Like, now it's like a faucet I can't turn off. Now, like when I threw that baseball out for the first pitch of the Rockies game, he came in. He's like, "That was terrible, dude." I was like, "What it was terrible." He's like, "Man, you should have thrown that over Dinger's head just to show everybody you could throw it." I was like, "What are you talking about?" He's like, "Nobody believes you have a good arm." And I was like, "What's going on?"
It was a curveball.
Yeah, I mean,
I know.
right. I was like, listen, man, I did the best I could. I don't really throw a baseball that like not hard, not on purpose. Like playing catch is one thing, but like trying to throw a pitch. And so it was just so funny. Like he came in and we spent half an hour of him telling me how I failed him. And like it's like, all right, man, this didn't go how I was picturing. I thought you were gonna say, hey, thanks for not embarrassing me.
But that's not fair, you know. You weren't expecting the dinosaur to walk halfway. You know, they wouldn't let you on the mound. It was
right.
But okay, the week leading up to this, or whenever you found out you were going to do the pitch, I mean, how many times did you hear the words "Baba Booey," 50 Cent? Like, you know, like what was that like? What kind of pressure was that?
Yeah, so much. And people were sending me videos, and even the people at Betfred, they were like, "I hope you've been practicing. Don't do this." Like,
don't go viral for the wrong reason.
I definitely wasn't one of them.
That's exactly what happened. So yeah, I mean, they gave me a week, right? Like they told me on a Wednesday, so like week and a half. They told me on a Wednesday, hey, would you be interested in doing this? I'm like, yeah. I mean, I think it'd be really cool. It's not something I'd ever like pictured in my head as like, wow, I got to do this before I die, because it's not something that's really up to you, right? I mean, like throwing out a first pitch, you got to be asked to do it. You can't be like, hey, if I donate enough money, can I go do this? Or if I, do enough charity, or, there's no, like even Ben was like mad at me because he's like, this is something I've always wanted to do. And I'm like, look, man, I'd let you do it, but I don't think that's how it works. Like they just literally asked me. And so, yeah, I mean, I was nervous. There were times where I was like, what did I get myself into? But the more I did it, like I started practicing that week, and the more I did, I was like, it's not going to be a problem getting it there. I just don't know if it's going to be straight. So, like, and then Peyton Manning took a ton of pressure off of me.
Yeah,
yes, he did.
I was so grateful. One day when I get a chance to see him again, I'll thank him for that. I'm like, and then he'll be mad about it because I'm sure he was like, oh God, you got to know Peyton, being a perfectionist, like he wanted that to be perfect. But yeah, they wouldn't let me up on the mound. And then the dinger came out, into the grass. I mean, and I've been practicing from 60 feet, and I was ready to go if that was what they were going to let me do, but they ended up going shorter, which again was like, okay, well then this isn't going to be a problem. And that's kind of what went through my head as soon as I walked up there and I saw dinger in the grass. I'm like, oh well, this is okay. Yeah, it's like 45 feet. I'm fine. It's gonna be good. It's gonna be okay. But then I still really wanted to throw like a straight down the middle strike. Like I still wanted that. But again, the one thing as I kept practicing over and over again, I kept going like way left. And so I think I overcorrected just a hair, and like so it ended up going right. But whatever.
The count was 0-2.
No,
the count was 0-2.
I shook him off.
Yeah,
I shook him off. Yeah, Ben dared me to do that. He's like, I dare you to shake him off, and I'm like, all right, I'll do it. I'll get up there. I'll shake off the side. Yeah, that's exactly what happened. It was fun.
And then you went and watched the video of the nun throwing like the perfect pitch at the.
I know,
like flipping the ball up.
Yeah,
but kind of going off.
The biggest goal, really quick. The biggest goal for me was just not to be like it's gonna be memorable enough for me. I just didn't want it to be memorable, like top 5 worst of all time. Show up on SportsCenter. That's really all I wanted not to happen. So
50, I think 50 still got it.
He's got it. Yeah, yeah.
Still.
Oh my God, people were sending me like the Kardashians. They were sending me like Mark Wahlberg and his bat. I mean, like oh my God, I got like a dozen of them. Like all week long, I get videos like randomly. I wake up in the morning and people would send me videos. And Ben's like, "You're gonna suck. It's gonna be terrible." and then Alfred was like, "It's gonna be a horror show." And then I was talking to a couple of my buddies over at the Fan, and they were also saying like, "Dude, as soon as I found this out, I was like, oh my God, poor Ryan. This is gonna be a disaster." I'm like, "Come on, guys, come on."
Well, like you think about it, like 50 Cent is worse than the Kardashians. Like
way worse.
Ouch.
And Ryan Edwards is better than Peyton Manning.
I hope you put that as the tagline of this whole.
That's going to be the tagline. We're going to hashtag it, tag it everywhere. One thing I was wondering, and it was a lot of when I was watching practice today. You're seeing, number 80 out there. You're seeing number 30 out there, and the Broncos only have 3 numbers actually retired. Which is Elway's. You got Franken, Peyton, and then you got Floyd Little. Are we going to see like a Terrell Davis number 30 retired? Are we going to see a Steve Atwater retired, a Rod Smith, Shannon Sharp, anything like that? Or are we not going to see any more jerseys retired?
I don't know, man. I mean, they just did the change this year where you can, be like Pastor Tan number 2 cornerback, right? So they just did the change this year, and maybe that'll open up the possibility of it. It's weird though, right? I mean, it's so weird. Like even today, I was talking to Nate Kreckman for a minute, and I was like, number 21 for me is Aqib Talib. So watching Ronald Darby out there making tackles, I'm like, yeah, no, it's not. No. I'm not there yet. Like it's still Aqib Talib, but then there's just like you get used to that. You know, you get numbers ingrained in your head, and yeah, you're talking about the classics like TD and Steve and Rod Smith. I mean, I don't know why we're not retiring Rod Smith. He's the all-time wide receiver here, but yeah. I don't know. I see that as something that should probably happen at some point, but again, just the way I don't know, different teams do it a little bit different, right? And I know I think the Broncos have been one of those teams that are like, we'll retire names, but just not numbers. I don't know why.
Okay. So Ryan, you mentioned your media friends and how supportive they were with your first pitch. One of the things that fascinates me, and we've brought it up on the pod a few times, is the media touch football game that happens every once in a while. And so we always ask like who the superstars are, who the worst are, and what is your favorite story, or what's a memorable moment from that? And feel free to pick on Ben.
Oh man.
I want to say, like, if we're talking about the worst, there's already been 2 votes.
Yeah.
I'm gonna say for who?
For the record.
It's probably for me. Yeah.
It's not for you.
No, it's not.
No,
you.
it's not. Okay.
There's
all
2
right.
votes for somebody. But I'm not gonna say who it is.
Yeah, it is fun. Like I said, I in my mind and I think like a lot of people, like I'm a much better athlete than I actually like. As soon as I get on the field, I'm like, oh man, I don't run fast. I have to be like the slow slot wide receiver that basically like, here, throw it over the middle and I'll catch it. Like that's my role. And then I get picked on as a cornerback anytime if I'm man up on a corner or on a wide receiver, I see the quarterback look over my way. I'm like, I'm dead. They're totally coming after me over here. But I tell you what, to make fun of myself for a second, I'll give you one on that. Mario lets me borrow his gloves, and I don't know what I was thinking, but I put them on backwards, like not inside out, but like the grippy part was on the top. Out. Yeah. And so, but now in my defense, I didn't drop a single pass that day. Like not one pass hit the ground.
Just catch it like that.
But it was the not sticky part on the inside. It was all the texture.
Why didn't you say that before we brought you in? It could have been in your accolades.
I know, right? Exactly.
Right next to the Emmy.
Right, and the EGOT and all that. Yeah, exactly. But no, I mean that's we have a lot of fun doing it. Mario tries to show off with his arm strength and injure people out there. He doesn't really care about it really is all about trying to make sure everybody knows he has the strongest arm. Like that's kind of like I boil down our football practices or games or whatever to just basically Mario trying to show us how good a football player he is. But it's just like a lot of fun. Off. Yeah, Ben, yeah, not at all, right? Not at all.
At the very end of like the episode he was on here, I'm trying to read the outro, and he's sitting here flexing, and the camera's like, "What are you doing?"
He's got to let
not
him know.
Prompted by anything, mind you.
I let him know.
Ben's funny because what we usually say about Ben is he's got like 2 or 3 plays in him, and then he's got to go lay down. So like what Ben does is he'll run the go. He'll run the go route to start off, and then like he's like, all right, give me a second, guys. And we're like, really? One play?
You think he has the most circulation? He has the deepest V out of anybody on the field, probably.
Hey, for real about that.
We did hear about Ben's water break, so he's going to be on in a few weeks, and we're thinking about we might need to take a water break halfway through.
You got to throw that out there, yeah, for sure. No, he's pretty funny, but yeah, he like we go get 2 or 3 plays, and he's like, all right, guys, I got to be the quarterback now. We're like already, huh? He's like, yeah, I'm all-time quarterback. Just let me be in there. We're like,
hiker. Let me hike it.
I think it was
exactly.
Last week where it was like, if the ball gets thrown to Ben, there's like a 30% chance he might catch it.
Yeah. He takes that stuff seriously though. So you know, like if you make fun of him, just know he's probably gonna get all grumpy and you know. So
yeah, Alaskan
we don't know
miner.
him well enough to do that.
I don't recognize the name Alaskan coal miner. Who says Ryan puts Judy to shame on the routes, double moves for days.
Mhm.
I got Zach Seegers. This is the one thing I got Zach Seegers last time we were out. I put a double move on him. I sort of faked inside and then I took off and I put him on skates. And as a 41-year-old man, it was one of the best moments of my life.
Oh, Zach, buddy.
Because he's 21. Man. He's half my age.
Yeah.
And, and he knew it.
Bree's dying.
No. Uh-oh.
Yeah.
Bree's dying.
Yeah, and he knew it too. He knew it. We were walking back to the line. They didn't see me go because they, like, why would they look my way? Because I wasn't going over the middle. And so, because I was starting outside, and I faked to the inside. I went straight up field, and it's one of the greatest days of my life. I broke his ankles. It was awesome.
One of those slow-mo. No.
Yeah.
I've got two more before we got to get going. One is from Mile High Profit. Who else is going to Canton next week? You got to see Steve go in the Hall of Fame. Is that everybody or just Broncos? Because it would be Atwater, Lynch,
Peyton.
Yeah, and that's all I paid attention to.
Yeah.
Will you be there, Ryan?
Calvin too.
Yeah, I'm gonna be there. I wouldn't miss it for the world. It's my first time going to Canton. I've never been, so I'm pretty fired up. Ben and I are going to go out there. I think I don't know. We got there's gonna be quite a few fans, I think, that are trying to make that trek. I know Profit's going to be out there. I mean, again, it's going to be. What a weekend for Broncos fans, right? I mean, you got Steve, you got Peyton. I mean, and then even if you don't necessarily recognize John Lynch as a Bronco or anything like that, but he's still a great guy, still a great person, great player. So I mean, it's just a great weekend for Broncos fans. I can't wait.
I just want to point out that my oldest son is now trolling Seegers. And then I'm going to end it with the greatest question I've ever heard of in my life. I've ended every podcast with this one for the last couple of weeks. A T-Rex sized chicken or 100 chicken sized T-Rexes?
Wow. Okay, hold on. T-Rex.
It's that question that they were asking at minicamp and OTAs when the players would walk out.
Right.
The T-Rex sized chicken or 100 chicken sized T-Rexes?
I'm going to say 100 chicken sized T-Rexes.
That's where everybody goes.
Yeah.
Right.
Is that wrong?
Right.
I went with the T-Rex sized chicken. It's a chicken.
I mean, he would be obviously dead.
Like, it's still 100.
You're not living through that.
It's still 100 T-Rexes. I don't care what size it is.
That's kind of what I think. I was like, standing on top of each other. That's pretty impressive. 100.
Like, it's like, I know it's T-Rex size, but it's a chicken.
Yeah,
exactly. Peck you so hard.
Whatever. Oh man,
that's a great question.
I thought so too. We also continue to laugh about the question they gave about what teammate would you not want dating your sister, and like everybody was like Shelby's like, why? I'm married with 4 kids. Like why?
He kept coming back.
Enough.
Like
you had enough.
That's hilarious. Yeah, I've seen that question. I missed the chicken one though. I missed that one. I was watching those videos. Those were good, but yeah, that's right. The giant.
See, that's why I keep asking it.
To think about that one.
All right. Well, that is about going to do it for us. This was really fun. I enjoyed it a lot.
Thank you, Ryan.
We want to thank Ryan so much for joining us on here. It's not every day that we get the Denver Broncos in here. So thanks, Ryan, the Denver Broncos.
Miles himself.
Yeah. You guys flatter me. Flattery gets you everywhere. Thank you. I appreciate it.
We try. And we do want to remind everyone that we are still on that quest for 1,000. So make sure that you are slapping that thumbs up button, subscribing, turn on notifications, comment, and share so you know when we go live, anytime we post content on our pages, and so that other Broncos fans out there in Broncos country know that we are awesome. I'm changing it to awesome instead of here. And also make sure you're tuning in at 6543 on Sundays for the Nothing Rhymes with Orange and Blue podcast with Johnny and Isaiah. This week they have the host of Mainly Broncos and a writer for Predominantly Orange, Cameron Parker, is going to be on the show on Sunday. And then at 7654 on Tuesday, there's Broncos Talk with a 6'10" Rich and Johnny. Now with that, we're going to head out. We love you all. Have a great weekend, but we have to end it the way that we end it with every other guest. We got to do the Mile High Five. The only reason you don't want Ryan to do it is because you don't want to do it.
That's fair.
The Mile High Five. Do you know what the Mile High Five is?
All right, I'm going to learn right now. What is it?
Okay.
It's arms straight out beside you. You yell Mile High Five and then clap above your head.
All right, hold on. I gotta set this thing down. All right.
So you hold your arms out. I'm going to yell Mile High Five, and we're going to clap over our heads. That's all we got to do.
All right.
That easy.
Is everybody ready?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
We're ready.
All right, arms out. Mile High Five. Done. Let's go. All
We did it. We made it, boys.
We'll see everybody on Sunday with Nothing
Thanks,
Rhymes
guys.
with Orange and Blue. See you guys.
Thanks.
Bye, guys.